My name is Esther, and today we have a daily amazing day to talk about the UPR session and especially about the HumanRights. I'm really sorry if we have some issues with the connection from Ireland, but the main and most important is our colleagues, our guests today that are an amazing guest. They're gonna talk and summarize this session. I have the pleasure today to welcome Sultana Khaya, as you know, is a human rights activist from Western Sahara. Tony as well, she's a lawyer, international lawyer. She's gonna tell us about this session and how she perceived this session, and as well to Representative Polisario from Sweden and from Switzerland. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today in this UPR session. Hello, Tony. Hello, Sania. And hello, Sultana Khaya and Moima from Switzerland. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Fine, thank you.
Very happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. How is it going? Today we've been all of us in social media talking about this UPR, sharing messages, and especially in Spain, as you know, we got the last pictures and last information about the Melilla, as we call in Spain, genocide. But we would like to focus today about this human rights session that took place in Switzerland. So I'm going to start with you, Umayma and Sultana Khaya. How you perceive today, were your feelings, especially Sultana as our main guest today in this UPR session?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نشكركم كاملين، وقطعا عني يحصل لي شرف مع هاي المجموعة كاملة الليلة اللي هي تتحدث عن الانتهاكات ومعاناة الشعب الصحراوي اللي هي ما هي مليون من 75.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very happy to be sharing this platform with a group of prominent individuals and to talk about the human rights situation in the occupied territories, which is not something new, which these violations have been going on since 1975.
والشعور اللي كانت اليوم داخل المجلس قطعا عنها الشعور اللي أنا شخصيا عنها كانت تأسف في هذا من الدول العالم كامل اللي مازال ينظر للمغرب عنه دولة، والله ينظر عنه ما ينتهك حقوق الإنسان، والله الانتهاكات الجسيمة لحقوق الإنسان اللي يتعرضوا لها كصحراويين. تكلموا بعض الدول المتضامنة اللي ذاك يعني واضح ذاك هو ذاك الموقف، واللي هي تعرف حقيقة الاحتلال المغربي. غير كان زين عندي أنا هذه يعني هذه المحكمة اللي هي والله هذه الامتحان اللي الحقيقة كان ما شفتش أبدا. شايف هذا حدث هي اللي ظهرته وهي اللي نعتمدوا عليها كصحراويين.
My feeling today at the Human Rights Council, as I was listening to the Universal Periodic Review session of Morocco, was that many of the states were perceiving and saw Morocco as a state that has this glamorous image of protecting human rights. It was extremely disappointing that many of the states commended Morocco for its human rights record, with the exception of few countries that defend the Sahrawis and know the reality and Morocco at its real image, who are our friends and supporters. I really did not see anything that was very encouraging from today's session.
نقول لهم عنده الدول كاملين اللي هما الاحتلال المغربي اللي هو داير مكياج هنا تياها، وهي الحقيقة دماء نحنات الصحراويات معتقلين السياسيين المحكوم عليهم مؤبد. هذا الشعب اللي هو مقفول عليه من 75 إلى يومنا هذا، واللي ما يقد اليوم يزور مراقب، ما يقد يوصل الصحراء أي حد. هذا ندوره نحن العالم يقول الحقيقة هو لماذا يخاف من المغرب، لماذا يخرج من المغرب. احنا اللي تحت ولاية الاحتلال ما أننا خايفين منه ونقولوا كلمتنا، ويعمل نحن عارفين عن نحن هم الضحايا وعن نحن هم اللي نقرروا مصيرنا، ما يقد يقرروا لنا حد. ما دام يعني الناس والعالم ماشي على هذا النوع اللي هو وخايف من المغرب ولا يقد يقول كلمة الحق عن حنايا بعد كالصحراويين بكبيرنا وصغيرنا لين نموتوا بعد من أجل هذا الحق ومن أجل هذه الكرامة، من أجل كان نعيش بحرية وبسلام كيف العالم كامل.
What I saw today was the usual Morocco putting on a makeup for the world, and it's unfortunate that many states do not see through that makeup, which we as Sahrawis see on daily basis, being victims of these abuses and violations. If for us who experience this oppression and aggression on daily basis, we're not afraid. So it is very difficult for us to understand why countries, why states are not holding Morocco accountable and are afraid to tell the world about these abuses and these violations. Why are countries afraid of Morocco when we both the young and old women in the occupied territories are not afraid of Morocco, and we stand up to Morocco. So we really hope that the international community and states will be better at making sure and calling out these abuses and violations by Morocco, and should not be afraid of Morocco.
تالبي سلطانة تالبي.
لا تابعوا، أنا قلت لي الشاشة قال تابعوا. صنت لكم بعد.
صنت شايفين أنتم؟
شايفينكم.
نحن ما طالبين من العالم عنه شيء ضد المغرب، والله غير يقول كلمة الحق. يقول كلمة الحق.
We're not asking the world to be against Morocco. We're just asking the world to show and defend justice. They should speak the truth.
منين معاناة النساء الصحراويات اللي هم يوميا يعذبوا، يوميا يغتصبوا، يوميا مهيونات أصلا ما فيها اللي أنا بديت واحدة في
تابعي نظر.
يوميا يعني هم عايشات تحت هذا الظلم، تحت طغاة الاحتلال المغربي، ولا خالق حد اليوم يقدر يوصل صوته، ما خالق حد يقدر يتكلم عنا كصحراويات انعانوا في المناطق المحتلة من ويلات الاحتلال المغربي. اليوم نشوفوا الناس تصفق الاحتلال المغربي. أنا
for us as women, as mothers, as Sahrawi mothers in the occupied territories, as Sahrawi women in the occupied territories, experiencing these violations and this oppression, it's very difficult for us to see the international community clapping for Morocco to continue these abuses against us. We suffer as women, as mothers, at the hand of this oppressive regime. So it's very difficult for us to continue if the world is encouraging and clapping for Morocco.
في تجربتي في هذه السنة و7 أشهر اللي هي كانت تجربة صعبة، وهي بالفعل عنها تجربة كيف جربوها الصحراويات كاملة. أنا ومن الصحراويات كاملة وعذبوا فيها الصحراويات كاملة. هاي التجربة اللي قايلة أنا عنها هذه تعود شوي تأثر، والله يعود الاحتلال المغربي خايف من ذا. يعني اليوم شفت اليوم الحقيقة، شفت المغربي وسجع، المغربي يؤيد، المغربي قال له زيد في الانتهاكات، زيد في القمع، زيد في التعذيب اللي هو المغربي لو ما وقف عند حده. هذا ما هو اللي هي اسمها لما وقف عند حده ما هو اللي يوقف.
From my painful experience of this over 1 year and 7 months living under besiegement in my own house, my experience, my personal painful experience, which is not just my own but also that of many Sahrawis, is that to come and see Morocco being praised, Morocco being encouraged to continue its violations and abuses against these Sahrawis. It's very difficult for me to accept that Morocco is being commended and encouraged to continue its occupation of my country and its human rights abuses.
الانتهاكات الجسيمة لحقوق الإنسان اللي يتعرض لها الشعب الصحراوي، واللي نقد نعود كضحية وكصوت للمرأة الصحراوية اللي هي انظلمت، اللي هي اغتصبت، اللي هي انقمعت، اللي هي جميع الأشكال يعني مارسوها عليها. نقول بصوتي، نقول عيب وعار، عيب وعار على المجتمع الدولي وعلى المنتظم الدولي اللي مازال هو عارف عن اليومات حتى خبر واحد عن الانتهاكات الجسيمة لحقوق الإنسان ما نشاف، ولو كلم عنه ولا مشدود أخباره. هذا يعني أنا بنفسي قايلة عن بي اللي شفت وعشت، لا نهار واحد من تحت هذا الظلام، نهار واحد والله ليلة واحدة من قلة النوم وقلة قايلة عن الناس اللي تعود عالمة بها كامل، والله تتكلم عنها كامل، والله تقول الاحتلال المغربي كفانا، وقف من الانتهاكات. شفت عدد كامل عن مصيرنا، شي ما عدلناه نحن بإرادتنا وبصمودنا وبقوتنا وتحدينا الاحتلال المغربي، راهم ما معدلونا أبدا.
My experience, which is my personal experience and what I went through, which is a reflection of the experience of many Sahrawi women. And I feel that my story is the story of many Sahrawi women. Seeing today that my story that we thought the world knew about and heard about was not even acknowledged, the grave and serious human rights violations that are committed by Morocco on a regular basis are not being talked about in this platform. My experience as a woman who's been violated, sexually harassed, beaten, tortured, spending many nights, many sleepless nights. And I thought that the world has heard of these horrific stories, that they are aware of these horrific stories, and to come here and see that no one is talking about this, it is very difficult and shameful that Morocco is not being held, and it's not being held accountable about these human rights violations. The conclusion that I came to today is that no one will help us in this process. It's only us. We have to rely on ourselves, and it's a shame that we have to do it on our own.
Thank you. Thank you, Sultana, for sharing with us your experience about this session, and especially you faced all this human rights violation under this regime. And as you highlighted, everyone is like greenwashing, or not even greenwashing, is washing the Morocco image. So if you would mind, we're gonna move forward for the next question to your colleague Moima, especially she has well been with you in this session. So Moima, we would like how it was this session as a representative Polisario member there in Switzerland, how you've been there, how it was your feelings.
It's thank you very much for organizing this, and it was a mixed kind of emotions, because we are finishing almost more than 1 year of working very hard to try to highlight the question of Western Sahara and the UPR of Morocco, and we were trying to make work from the grassroots to have the possibility that every country feels the responsibility to recommend Morocco about Western Sahara and about their violations in Western Sahara and about the jurisdictional status of Western Sahara. I am happy because I see that almost all the countries of the world, they have presented recommendations to Morocco. Some of the countries have spoken loudly about the question of Western Sahara. I have to say that the one who spoke with us are the one who Morocco cannot buy. So we have here almost some countries reading textually what Morocco put them in front. So sometimes we have to discuss if the really UN is still worth to work with it, or we have to look at another mechanism to protect ourselves. So do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Continue, perfect.
So my feelings are mixed. I am happy because 11 countries have spoke directly about the question of Western Sahara, about the right of the Sahara people of self-determination. A lot of countries have spoke about so many issues that are related in the report of the Sahrawi people. We have to highlight here in this event that you are hosting, Tesh and your colleagues, that one of our main objectives is to make clear the jurisdictional status of the territory in this UPR. And we were very frustrated to see that the Troika group, the group who is accepting the Office of the High Commissioner, who is the UN system and who recognized the Western Sahara as a non-self-governing territory, has accepted the report of the country of Morocco, which states that the borders of Morocco finishes in Mauritania. So for us, this is a grave violation of international law, and it's coming from the head, from the UN and from the office. We hope that they can correct this in the coming days. And I am happy because there was so many recommendations on Western Sahara and on Morocco, in the UPR of Morocco. And I hope that the International Committee today are more aware, they have more knowledge about what's going on in Western Sahara and the involvement of Morocco in the occupation of our land. Also, I want to thank all the Sahrawi stakeholders who have participated, and also all the friends who has come from other countries in the world and who has helped us also to make this shadow report.
Thank you, Maima. Thank you. We will move with another colleagues. They didn't been in this session actually, but we've been all already following the session in the behind the scenes. So welcome, Tony. How are you? How is it going? Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me. And for
organizing. To know how. Yeah, you hear me well. Can be what's the recommendation? If it was as you expect as a lawyer. Sorry for the internet tonight from Ireland. We got a great point from Ireland, but today the data is not working very well here. So thank you. So I would like you if you can reply to the question on the screen. Thank you.
First, thank you so much for organizing this online stream on the day of the UPR of Morocco. I was sitting in my home in Oslo trying to follow everything that was happening, and I think I shared very much the frustration of Sultana, what she shared, even though I cannot have the same frustration as her because I don't live in occupied territory. I don't feel the suffering that Sahrawis in occupied territory feel every single day. But at the same time, I'm also grateful for the states that actually place forward recommendations. As Umeima pointed out, some of them were very forceful. We got recommendations from South Africa, specifically relating to the Sahrawi political prisoners, which was very strong, and it also related to the obligations of Morocco as an occupying power, so under the Fourth Geneva Convention. But I think the sentiment that I have after hearing all of the recommendations placed forward is that the UPR mechanism is in its essence a human rights mechanism. And human rights mechanisms is the only avenue that we have. There is very few mechanisms or none that exist under humanitarian law. So we're forced to turn to the ones that exist under human rights law. And it becomes very, very apparent that it's not designed to deal with the situation of an occupation. Because during today's session, we heard both questions. We heard recommendations both on Morocco proper, and we heard recommendations on Western Sahara. So it covers both human rights violations and human rights concerns within Morocco proper, which is distinct from the ones that we find in occupied territories. So many states raise the issue of the death penalty, the issue of of child marriage, the issue of women's rights, the issue of children's rights, which is crucial in the context of Morocco. And in the context of Western Sahara, different concerns are raised, which of course the most prominent is the deprivation of the right to self-determination, which is the core reason for all of the human rights violations that we continue to see in the occupied territory. But the situation has also aggravated itself after the ceasefire ended, with the prosecution of Sahrawi human rights defenders and journalists and activists, which was raised by Ireland today, which I am very grateful for, and also the situation of the Sahrawi political prisoners that, as I said, was raised by South Africa. So in total, I think that the recommendations that was raised was strong. They were to the point on some of the concerns that we have, but at the same time, it also shows with full effect that the UPR mechanism is a human rights mechanism and not designed to deal with the situation of occupation, and that human rights monitoring that deals with occupied Western Sahara is needed.
Thank you, Tony. So I would like to make the same question to you, Sania, the representative from Polisario to Sweden. How you saw this, like the same question actually?
Thank you, Tesh. First of all, I'm so happy to be sharing this platform with Sultana. And it's really important that her voice and the voice of human rights defenders, victims of human rights violations in the occupied territories are consistently highlighted. And I think today really was the UPR today, and the session today just showed the need for this independent mechanism to ensure the protection and the documentation of human rights violations in the occupied territories by Moroccan occupying forces and authorities. And since Morocco's UPR doesn't seem to be an effective mechanism, I think the way, like Tuna has mentioned, the way to go is to make sure that we have another approach by the UN human rights mechanisms to ensure that human rights situations in the occupied territories are both monitored, but also the human rights of all individuals living under occupation are protected, especially those of human rights defenders and activists and political prisoners. And that can only happen if we have a special rapporteur, or we have those special mechanisms that follow those processes. Overall, I think there were unfortunately few countries that we expected to have pointed out the human rights abuses by Morocco and didn't do that. It is naturally disappointing, but I think all the recommendations were varied and cross-cutting, from the right to self-determination and the lack thereof of its implementation and in occupied Western Sahara, to the opening the territory for visit by the working group on business, as well as also having the occupied territories accessible to the human rights, the High Commissioner for Human Rights to conduct a visit to the occupied territories, which Morocco naturally has prevented. But I should maybe just mention that Morocco really humiliated, I think, the United Nations and the UN human rights system by having this orchestrated, almost theater show, bringing everyone in their government to this working group session on UPR. I don't think a single state or delegation has brought such a high level, which goes to show just how the high stake that Morocco has in this UPR process, because it knows very well that it has a terrible record. It knows very well that it has a lot of abuses and violations, both against its own citizens, against children and women in Morocco, but more importantly, its terrible, well-documented human rights track record in the occupied territories, with systematic violations and abuses on a daily basis. So it knew that it has a lot to lose from this UPR cycle. It has learned from previous cycles that this is an important platform to hold Morocco accountable. So like Sultana mentioned, it is quite disappointing to see that some states didn't rise up to the occasion and really make sure that Morocco is held accountable. So I think the show today for Morocco was just to show that they're outnumbered delegations even in the hall, which I think was quite embarrassing in that sense. But to conclude by saying that it's really important that a mechanism that ensures the protection and the documentation of human rights in occupied Western Sahara is more necessary than ever before.
If I can please just add on what Sania is saying.
Sure. For
because
sure.
She raised a very important point on the fact that Morocco actually gathered their entire government to be present in Geneva today during the UPR hearing. And it's not something new on the part of Morocco. Morocco is a state that is very, very good at ratifying human rights treaties, also the additional protocols, granting also competence to different various human rights bodies, representing Morocco in various human rights bodies. But it is also a state that is not very good at implementing human rights decisions and implementing recommendations from the UN system. And to me, as you just said, this shows the lack and the failure of the UN system, where a state is allowed to be present in various UN bodies. They're now a member of the Human Rights Council, despite their human rights record, despite the fact that Morocco fails to implement the decision of the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, despite that they don't implement the decision from the UN Torture Committee, despite recommendations given by the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Offenders that Morocco must stop the systematic targeting and abuse of Sahrawi, but also Moroccan human rights offenders. And this to me shows the lack that you have within the UPR mechanisms, and also makes it even more important that you have judicial and independent mechanisms that you can turn to, and especially during times of occupation.
Good point, Tony. Thank you for adding that. As you know, I'm letting you talk today because of this issue we had, but we're going to come back with Umayma and Sultana Khaya from Switzerland. I would like to ask you the question of the main states that highlighted recommendation today for Morocco. If you can, we've been reading and following social media, especially Western Sahara Watch Resource tweets. So if you can give us some summary about this.
Micro.
Yeah, now it's working.
Thank you very much, Tesh, for this question. As I told you, the countries who spoke up today in this UPR are the countries whom Morocco cannot buy. So we are very happy with the quality and with the countries who are highlighting the question of Western Sahara and the strong support that Western Sahara has received in this UPR. There is Luxembourg, Ireland, Norway, Vanuatu, Timor-Leste, Venezuela, Algeria, Mexico. 11 countries have highlighted the question of Western Sahara. Maybe I have forgot one or two. Uganda, yes, Uganda. And we are very happy with the quality of the recommendations, are the quality, this kind of recommendation that really can help the international community to understand the jurisdictional status of Western Sahara and also understand the implication of Morocco in avoiding the right of Sahara people to access to their right of self-determination. So 11 countries has participated today. We are very happy with them. But we have to I just want, if you allow me, Tesh, to say one word among other.
Go.
Morocco, as Sania say, they bring all the government. They bring the parliament, they bring the government, the Ministry of the Interior, the Justice, whatever. And a lot, I think it's plenty of people. Morocco is very good in giving this makeup to themselves. But every time they given the chance to countries to speak, Morocco is slashed with recommendations. So maybe it will be around more than 400 recommendations or more that we will hear very soon about the number of recommendations next Friday. But it's a lot on the Morocco in its international borders, and it's a lot on questions that are related to Western Sahara and the occupation of Morocco to Western Sahara.
Great to hear that, Umayma. We, as you said, and as you mentioned, we have in our footer, we are sharing the Western Sahara Resource Watch summary about this recommendation and these countries. And we're going to jump to one of the latest questions to Sonia, representative of Polisario in Sweden. So we would like to ask you, because we've been following and it's something shocked for us, especially in Spain, that African countries are really not, they don't demand too much from Morocco. Why? What does that happen? Because especially, as you know, with Morocco blockmail Spain with borders, with these kind of things. So if you can briefly talk about this.
Yes, of course, 4 major African countries actually spoke out very loudly and were extremely critical of Morocco and its role and its occupation of Western Sahara, namely Namibia, Algeria, of course, South Africa, Uganda. They were extremely vocal in raising the issue and the occupation of Western Sahara during the Morocco UPR. Now, it is, of course, extremely surprising and shameful that most of the African nations did not speak up against Morocco, and they don't dare to do that, even though many of them are members of the African Union, which Western Sahrawi Republic is a founding member of, and they sit together with both Sahrawi Republic and Morocco in the African Union, and they are not even saying the decisions and the resolutions and the official position of the African Union, which is that Morocco is an occupying force of Western Sahara, and Morocco needs to implement the right to self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. Even the latest decision by the African Court of Human and People's Rights was very clear that all African nations, all members of the African Union, are responsible and have a legal responsibility and a moral responsibility to make sure that the people of Western Sahara enjoy their right to self-determination, and they should refrain from any action or any step that may undermine that. And honestly, today, the fact that many African nations did not speak up against Morocco's human rights violations and abuses of Sahrawis in the occupied territories, that in itself is undermining this moral and legal obligation that all African nations have toward the people of Western Sahara. But this is not surprising, really, because oftentimes Morocco is really good at either false promises that they will do something in return for some of our African neighbors, or that they really try to pressure and blackmail certain capitals and certain African member states. And it's difficult to accept that a country can be sort of, its arm can be twisted by another country, but that's the reality. Morocco is really good at using its lobbying. It's very good at trying to hide its track record and its abuses and its violations in occupied Western Sahara, that it does everything possible to really twist the arm and even twist the legs of all countries around the world. And unfortunately, many African countries are the first victims because they try to use their position of weakness or their own internal challenges, and perhaps oftentimes even their own track record in their own countries of oppression against activists or human rights defenders. So some of those African countries cannot speak up against Morocco because they themselves are also, as regimes, are very authoritarian, very oppressive regimes against opposition, against people who speak up against their oppression or marginalization in their own countries. So you can't really expect people who don't have a good or democratic systems to speak up against an oppressive and occupying regime like Morocco. But of course, as African countries, they hold the responsibility to implement the decisions and the official position of the African Union, and they have consistently not done that. And I think Morocco thinks that it can buy many of African capitals and therefore also buy their official position, but that it's just a momentary celebration, I think.
Thank you very much. I would like, as you know, this session is just for you guys to talk, and is a session to share your feelings and what you expect, especially for the next 4 years. As you know, most of the people is thinking that this is the end, and in Sahrawis today, everyone as well is thinking, okay, this 2 weeks we are finished with the UPR, but the fact is, like, we need to keep going. It's amazing the work that has been done. So I would like to ask you, which are your recommendations based on your experiences, especially I'm going to start with Sultana Khaya to tell us, as a human rights defender, what she recommends, especially to civil society and to the human rights defenders here in Europe. Sultana, you have the floor. Assalamu alaikum.
أرجمي سنين.
ترجم لك السؤال بالعربي. عقب بعد هذا التقييم الدوري الشامل وهي الجلسة العلنية للمغرب، شنو هي مقترحاتك ولا توصياتك للمجتمع المدني، سيانة المجتمع المدني الصحراوي أو الأوروبي؟ شنو هي القضايا ولا شنو هي المسائل اللي خاصة يركزوا عليها؟ لأنه هذه ما هي النهاية، هذه خلقت هاي الجلسة غير مازالت من هون 4 سنوات، خاصة يبدأ حد يحضر لها مدرك. شنو هي التوصيات وشنو هي المقترحات اللي تعطي للمجتمع المدني اللي مهتم بهذا الموضوع؟
نشكر بعد المجتمع المدني الصياني، المجتمع المدني الأوروبي والمجتمع المدني كامل اللي هو يدافع عن حقه وعن تقرير مصير الشعوب. بالفعل عني نطلب منهم كاملين وبجهودنا كاملين، ونطلبوا على حماية آلية المناطق المحتلة، المجتمع المدني الصحراوي اللي هو يعيش في ظروف حرب، اللي يعيش في ظروف خطر، ما خالق حد له يشوفه ولا خالق حد متكلم عنه ولا خالق عنه. احنا نحتاج حماية دولية والله آلية تعود حاميتنا كمدنيين في الجزء المحتل من الوطن.
First of all, I would like to thank all civil society, both Sahrawi and international civil society and European civil society, that continue to defend our right to self-determination. My call and my request is that we continue to talk about the human rights situation in occupied Western Sahara, because we need a mechanism, a protection mechanism of those rights in Western Sahara, especially given the current situation the current situation of war in Western Sahara, and the fact that there is no mechanism to protect the human rights, especially the rights of human rights defenders and activists. It's very concerning. So we need a human rights mechanism that will ensure that protection.
ورسالتي المجتمع المدني الصحراوي أن نديروا يد في يد ندافع عن ذا الوطن ولا نعاطينه لحد. وقالت فمت يا كلمة من هو الأربع إيمان، نحن قاعد إن شاء الله من هو العام ولا عامين نعود إلى أرضنا مستقلة، اللي ما أعطينا حد شيء نحن نعطوا رواحنا ونعطوا دفاعنا من أجل ونتكاتفوا الجهود من أجل تقرير مصيرنا ومن أجل بنيان دولتنا واستقلالنا الوطني إن شاء الله. وقطعا عنا نقول للصحراويين كاملين الصحراويات عنا راهو ما ضاع حق وراهو مطالب والإرادة لا تقهر وشي ما جبناه نحنا روسنا راهو ما عطينا حد. تحية.
And my message to Sahrawi civil society is that we continue to work hand in hand in defending our country and our legitimate rights. You mentioned that this will happen again in 4 years, but who knows, Western Sahara can and will be independent maybe in a year or two. And my message to the Sahrawi people is that we have to do this ourselves. We have to make sure that we hand in hand continue to fight for our independence and for our freedom in our own independent country. As long as there is someone defending the truth, our rights will not go in vain, and we have to continue to defend our country and our homeland.
Thank you. So I would like to jump to you, Maima, if it's possible that you're there.
What I'm expecting for the next years.
I hope you heard me. Just come on.
Yes, I am expecting for the next years that the UN understands that they are failing the aspirations of the Sahrawi people, that the international community, all the countries who are in the UN, has sacrificed the Sahrawi people. This is not fair. Sahrawi people are very peaceful people. They want just the right to self-determination. And it's time to do justice in Western Sahara. I hope that this UPR can advance the education on the jurisdictional status of Western Sahara, and that Morocco plays a big role in the tragedy of the Sahrawi people. So I hope that the next year, the Sahrawi people has a very special mechanism for protection of human rights, maybe special reporter, maybe find another mechanism to protect and to inform about what's going on in Western Sahara, and that it's unacceptable that Western Sahara remains a black spot, no information, with no one knowing what's going on, and this is the shame of the international community. So we need more responsibility, we need more seriousness towards Sahrawi people, and we hope that in the next years there will be a mechanism to protect the Sahrawi people.
Thank you, Maima. Antonio, the last round with you, if it's possible.
Well, I think as long as the occupation continues of Western Sahara by Morocco, we need to continue our struggle also to hold Morocco accountable. As an occupying power, Morocco holds obligation both under humanitarian law, but also under human rights law as the occupying power. And we as civil society and as lawyers, we need to take all avenues possible in order to hold Morocco to account. And as we touched upon, the UPR is one of those mechanisms. This time, a total of 14 reports was submitted detailing the human rights concerns in the occupied territory, also referring to the violations of humanitarian law. And I believe that we managed to raise the concerns with relevant states. We got some strong recommendations this round, but we also need to take lessons learned from this UPR session. And it's time that the international community realizes that Morocco cannot be allowed to report on a territory in which it occupies. It is time to have an independent human rights mechanism that reports on the situation in the occupied territories.
Thank you very much. And the last one is Samir Bashir, from representative for the Polisario in Sweden.
A few things. One, like you said, this is not the end. This is really just the beginning. I think it's really important that we continue to report. We continue to highlight the occupation. We need to use the right terminology. We need to continue to refer to Morocco as an occupying power. We need to continue to expose the occupation. We need to continue to, as much as possible, to share information, to spread information, to raise awareness. This is an illegal occupation, and it has continued for this long simply because the international community has turned a blind eye to this. But we as international citizens, as global citizens, as responsible individuals, whether Sahrawis, this is our, of course, national obligation, but more importantly, this is a collective responsibility of all citizens around the world. It is your responsibility to make sure that the occupation of Morocco, of Western Sahara, ends once and for all, because as long as Morocco is getting away with this occupation, other countries will just continue to do the same, and we cannot allow that to happen. Now, to prepare for any next steps, it's really important that we start now. We start to expose Morocco. We continue to expose Morocco. We are the only reporters. The human rights defenders and activists in the occupied territories need all our support. They are our only witnesses. The brave, the people who are literally in the front line. Sultana Khaya, who has given her life, her body, and other human rights activists like Aminata Haidar, like Ghalia Jimi, all of them are the women who are putting themselves out on the street on daily basis and being beaten, being tortured, being raped. This is really something out of a horror movie, and the fact that these atrocities continue to be unreported, it is shameful, and it is our duty and our obligation to continue to expose and to share those stories. And as Sahrawis, we will continue. We cannot relent, that's for sure. And if Morocco is becoming arrogant and they think that, okay, this is it, this is a one battle, it is not. This is just really the beginning of the end for the occupation. And it's really important to continue to put pressure on Morocco, but also on international mechanisms. We need to expose more United Nations systems that have failed repeatedly over and over and over for decades. They have failed the Sahrawi people. They have failed the principles and values that they stand for. And we need to highlight those discrepancies and that hypocrisy, because it's only then that reaction will happen. But just to say that I believe in our collective responsibility as individuals and as peoples around the world to overthrow and to put an end to this occupation and to all atrocities around the world. Yeah, so just to say, since Tesh seems to have issues with her network, is that continue using social media as a platform. Honestly, this is like the new battleground for information. Morocco tries to spread misinformation, tries to engage in disinformation campaigns. So use your platform to amplify the voices of the Sahrawi people, the voices of human rights defenders and activists, the voices of experts like Tunna. Amplify their voices, share their recommendation, share their documentation. Use this important and free and accessible platform to really make sure that this information is widely shared, because we really are still victims of this information black hole and this lack of awareness that the international community seems to perpetuate and continue to encourage in occupied Western Sahara.
Thank you very much to all of you. I don't know if you hear me now.
Yes. Yes, we hear you.
So we're gonna end this session. I'm really sorry for the internet issues today, but I wanted to thank you all, everything today. And we're gonna finish this live. I'm hoping to have another session better than this one. As I said, we need to keep going. This is not the last week, and UPR doesn't end here, and human rights violation doesn't end here. So thank you very much. Tahiyya nidaliya li Sultana Khaya también. Así que muchísimas gracias a todos. No os perdáis mañana nuestra sesión el miércoles. Don't miss our session tomorrow at 8 p.m. with another activist from another organizations that's going to be really powerful session as well. Thank you very much, and good night to all of you.
Thank you.